Hi everyone, my name's Naomi and I want to tell you a story. A long time ago when I was young, I married a lovely man by the name of Elimelech. You actually have to lick your lips to say Elimelech, and he was very tasty. We were so happy together and we had two gorgeous sons. Now, spoiler alert, it's quite a sad story. There was a terrible famine in the place where we lived. It was called Bethlehem. I'm sure you've never heard of it, no one has. So we went to another country called Moab to live. And then my husband died. Happily, our boys grew up and found nice girls to settle down with. Ruth and Orpah, not Oprah. That's someone completely different. And then both my boys died. Suddenly I was left alone with just the two girls. So when someone told me the famine was over back home, we decided to go back to Israel, the three of us.
I'm Ruth. I was married to Naomi's son, and like she says, we all decided to go back to Bethlehem. After all, we were still family, even without our husbands being alive anymore. But we weren't very far into the journey when Naomi changed her mind.
Girls, go back home. You're from Moab. You'll have a much better chance of finding new husbands there than you will in Israel.
And so Orpah went back. But I loved Nana Naomi, and I couldn't leave her. I told her that her people would be my people, and her God would be my God. She kept trying to persuade me to go back.
Go back, Ruth, you silly sausage. Go home.
But I wouldn't, and so in the end we travelled on together, all the way back to Bethlehem.
When we got back to Bethlehem, the harvest was just beginning, and because we had no hubbies to earn any money for us, I told Ruth to go to the fields where the men were bringing in the harvest. In Israel, it's the custom for poor people to go and pick up whatever's left from behind the harvest. We call it gleaning. As it happened, Ruth went to glean in the fields of a man named Boaz, who happened to be a relative of my poor dead husband.
I'm Boaz, and I noticed Ruth straight away when she started to glean in my fields. I asked around about her and found out she was part of Naomi's family, and therefore related to me in a roundabout way. I wanted to help her, and Naomi, and let her know how kind I thought she'd been to Naomi. I made sure that plenty was left for her to pick up, and I let her sit and eat with my own servant girls so that she would be safe.
I couldn't really believe my luck that the field I was gleaning in belonged to such a kind man. I couldn't believe he was so nice to a foreign girl like me. Naomi couldn't believe how much grain I brought home with me.
It's a wonder, you beauty. Look at all this lovely grain.
I told her about Boaz, and she said he was one of our relatives. Boaz said to me I could glean in his fields until the harvest was finished. So that's what I did.
Boaz is part of our family, and in our culture, if a man dies, someone in his family can marry the widow, so they can be looked after, which is nice. I wondered if Boaz would do that for Ruth, so I told Ruth what she needed to do.
Naomi told me to do such an unusual thing. I had to go to where the men were working on the grain at night, and then when Boaz went to sleep, I was to uncover his feet and lie down beside them. It must be another strange custom, but I trusted Naomi, so off I went to find Boaz's feet.
I woke up in the middle of the night and wondered who was lying near my feet. It tickled. And do you know what? It was Ruth. I knew she was asking me to marry her, but I also knew there was someone else who was a teeny bit closer in the family, who I'd have to ask first. Didn't want to muscle in where I wasn't needed. In the morning, I gave Ruth lots more grain to take home to Naomi, and then I went to see this chap to ask if I could marry her.
So Boaz talked with the other relative, and he said that Boaz could marry me, and that's what happened. We got married, and God gave us a tiny son, Obed.
Talk about happy ever after. I thought I'd lost everything, but God gave me another big piece of happiness to keep me going in my old age. I think if you look into the future, you'll find that Obed was the ancestor of the great King David, who in turn was an ancestor of the person who would change all of history, Jesus.
I'm so glad I chose to stay with Naomi. I can't believe that God would use an ordinary girl like me in such an amazing way.